Throughout life, we meet various people, and among them, certain men and women find each other and fall in love. They vow to spend their lives together and marry, to stay by each other's side until the end. It seems simple, but how difficult it truly is. A marriage of mutual love is nothing short of a miracle. I was fortunate enough to encounter such a miracle in my life. I met a man in a college club, and before I knew it, he had become the love of my life. He, too, fell in love with me. After graduation, we went through a lot, even coming close to breaking up. Nevertheless, we overcame the difficulties, exchanged vows of eternal love, and got married. It was ordinary, but the happiness was so overwhelming that it brought tears to my eyes. The life I walk through with the one I love is filled with smiles. My name is Jennifer. I am a 34-year-old and working for an IT company. It's been 10 years since I married my husband, Michael. Even in our mid-30s, our relationship was still going strong. Hey, shall we go somewhere on our next day off?
Yeah, how about we go to a movie? It's been a while.
Agreed. There's a place nearby that serves delicious pasta, right? Let's have lunch there after the movie.
Sounds good.
We didn't have children, but we didn't think it was a big deal. There's a movie I've been wanting to see, so I was excited. But the day before our day off, my husband came home late from work, and something seemed off. He looked exhausted, pale, and lacked his usual energy. You look tired. You're pale. Is work that tough? It was obvious that he was busy and had a lot on his plate since he stayed late at work, and I regretted asking him such an apparent question when he gave a faint smile.
Yeah, well, work is always tough, but...
But what?
Well, it's nothing serious.
He never did tell me what was on his mind. The next day's date didn't go very well either. He seemed distant, as if his mind was elsewhere. Watching my husband like that, I couldn't even focus on the movie plot, and we ended up going home without having lunch. I could tell my husband was hiding something. Was it something he couldn't tell me, or did he think I wouldn't understand if he did? I found myself thinking about this more and more. His energy seemed to be fading day by day, and not knowing what to do about it, I spent my days in distress. Then one day, a call came into my office. The moment a colleague told me it was from the hospital, a wave of indescribable anxiety swept over me. Was it a family emergency, an accident, or something worse? I picked up the phone with trepidation. As soon as the call ended, I stumbled out of the office, barely keeping my feet under me. The moment I sat in the hospital room, I felt like I was going to collapse. A nurse standing by the entrance caught me. Somehow standing on my own, I shakily approached the bed. My husband was lying in the bed, seemingly asleep, but I knew from the doctor's explanation that it wasn't just sleep.
We've done everything we could.
The doctor, looking apologetic, bowed his head. Without a word, I shook my head. It wasn't anyone's fault. It wasn't bad luck. It was just his fate. Just that. A stroke. My husband had collapsed suddenly at work and never woke up again. I was so shocked by the sudden separation that I couldn't even cry, just stood there in disbelief. When I gently touched my husband, there was still a slight warmth. The fading color and warmth of his face were a stark reminder of reality. Realizing that his life was no longer here, that he would never open his eyes again, I found myself crying before I knew it. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I was glad I cried all I could at the hospital, as the business that followed was overwhelming. I have to call my family and his family, and it felt like my head was spinning with all the rushing around. There was just so much to do. Discussions with the hospital about the future, arranging the funeral, figuring out who to notify about my husband's passing, and contacting the necessary people. I did my research to ensure that all the necessary paperwork could be handled promptly at government offices and financial institutions. There was no time to grieve with the mountain of things that needed to be done. If I had just been sitting there with nothing to do, I would never have been able to stand up again on my own. It was the things that needed to be done that somehow allowed me to pull myself together. But his parents, especially his mother Sophia, were exhausted. I think the shock of losing her son was even greater than the sorrow of my losing the husband. I could feel how much they loved the son from their character. I knew how much my husband loved his parents too. That's why my mother-in-law was so disheartened that she couldn't stand up. I would have been the same if I hadn't had things to do. Still, there was so much I didn't know. With the help of my father and father-in-law, I managed to make the preparations. On the day of the funeral, a great many people came. Many mourned the premature departure of my husband. Our mutual friends embraced me gently. My husband's colleagues told me how popular he was at work. I felt proud that my husband was loved by so many people, and it alleviated my sadness a little. The funeral proceeded quietly, and just when I thought it was all over, a young woman in her mid-20s suddenly approached the family seats. She was visibly pregnant. I felt sorry for her having made the effort to come in her condition. "Thank you for coming all this way today." I bowed deeply.
Are you Jennifer? You're older than I imagined. It's kind of funny.
I was taken aback. Her sudden greeting left me speechless, and I just stared at her face. What is your relationship with my husband?
The child in my belly was conceived by your husband.
Excuse me? I doubted my ears. An outrageous story had unfolded, and it took me a while to open my mouth. What? What does that mean? My husband? A child?
Jennifer, what's wrong?
My father spoke to me, seeing my astonishment. Oh, Dad. You see, as I struggled with what to say, the woman carrying my husband's child pushed past me and stepped forward.
Are you Miss Jennifer's father? Nice to meet you, I'm Catherine. I was a junior in the same department as your son-in-law and am pregnant with his child.
Huh.
I couldn't help but think, like father, like child. My father's reaction was exactly the same as mine. As we were dealing with our shock, attendees who noticed her loud voice started to approach the family area. What should I do in this situation? I was at a loss.
What's the matter?
Oh, John. Well, you see, at this moment, the woman who pushed me aside earlier, claiming to be Catherine, stepped forward again. It was more like a slap than a push. Quite painful. The woman, calling herself Catherine, repeated the same story.
Are you Michael's father? Well, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm currently pregnant, and this child is your son's. I'm 8 months along. So, I expect this child to receive an inheritance.
She declared loudly, and everyone present let out a dumbfounded huh. In unison. What in the world is happening here? Catherine, with her big belly sticking out, stood defiantly with flaring nostrils, glaring at me. Inside that belly was my husband's child. Does this mean my husband cheated on me? It can't be true, can it? Why? After all, we've always been so close. Always together. We even went on dates every week, right? And yet he cheated. With another woman, he had a child. How could this? Catherine seemed to think I was crying because I was looking down and shaking. So she said with a triumphant look on her face.
He said he didn't need a woman like you who can't have children. He wanted to divorce you and be with me. It was supposed to happen as soon as the baby was born. It's a pity, but it can't be helped now. But now that it's come to this, I'll take what I can get.
Not able to have children. Well, that's indeed true. After all, it's a result of a known cause. I started to shake more and more. That's when it happened. Someone placed a hand on my shoulder. Looking back, my Sophia was standing there.
May I have a moment? What did you just say?
Sophia. I looked at her as if seeking her help.
So, I'm telling you that your son has gotten me pregnant, you understand?
Is there anything that can prove that fact?
It's true. Michael and I were in love. He used to complain about how he couldn't wait to give you a grandchild, but because of his good-for-nothing wife, that wasn't possible. He said it was the worst.
My son and Jennifer are very close and go on dates every week. But don't believe such nonsense.
That was all an act by Michael. He always complained to me about his wife. Saying they go on weekly dates is a lie, right? The truth is, he spent every night with me, his real partner.
So, are you saying you got pregnant by my son during one of those times?
Exactly.
I see, so that's how it is.
The mother-in-law, much like me earlier, looked down and started to shake. To an outsider, the way the mother-in-law was looking down and shaking might seem like she had accepted the situation as truth.
Oh, are those tears of joy because you're so happy to have a grandchild? That must be it, since you couldn't have one because of that woman. But now, you can hold your grandchild a lot. Please be happy. And from now on, be sure to give us lots of money for your grandchild.
The words of that woman made me bow my head too, and I started shaking violently. Seeing Sophia and me shaking, the woman looked down on us with a triumphant smirk.
Hey, what on earth are you thinking?
The boss was sternly reprimanding the woman.
Can you please not butt in? I was dating Michael, you know. I think demanding a share of the inheritance is totally legitimate, don't you?
Even if that's true, you should know better than to discuss it here.
You're so annoying. I've had enough, you know? Once I get the inheritance, I'm quitting this job. I won't even take maternity leave, I'll just resign. I have nothing to do with you anymore, so don't interfere, okay?
Catherine's brazen attitude was astounding, and even the boss was left speechless. I couldn't take it anymore. Both the mother-in-law and I had reached our limit of endurance, shaking uncontrollably. This is hilarious. Whether it was a reaction to holding it in for so long, I couldn't stop the laughter that started to spill out.
It's no use. Oh, it's too funny. I couldn't hold it in any longer because Jennifer started laughing. Ha 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 ha.
Indeed. I and Sophia finally burst into laughter, holding their stomachs. Our inappropriate roaring laughter echoed through the somber funeral home. They knew it was disrespectful, but I've never heard such a joke.
That's right. As if that could ever happen.
The other attendees were taken aback, watching me and Sophia continue to laugh.
Don't laugh, stop laughing. I haven't said anything funny.
Catherine glared at them with fierce protest in her eyes. Amidst this, Sophia was the first to stop laughing.
Look, I don't know what you're thinking by telling such lies.
It's not a lie. It really is Michael's child.
Enough with the jokes. The funeral home fell silent after Sophia's sharp scolding. Clearing her throat, Sophia glared at Catherine.
You see, my son was a huge fan of Jennifer. He loved her so much, he cried with joy, snot, and all when she accepted his proposal.
Huh?
Catherine was taken aback by Sophia's unexpected story. Indeed, my husband had loved me tremendously. He would boast about me so much when we visited his parents' house.
Cut it out.
I had even seen Sophia hit him with a slipper for his nauseating stories. My husband having an affair? Having a child with another woman? Impossible. That would never happen. Not even if the world were to end. And there was a decisive fact that proved it was a lie. With resolve, I stepped in front of Catherine. You know, this isn't something to talk about in public, but if you're going to keep lying, I'll tell you. The reason we don't have children is because of my husband.
What?
Catherine seemed unable to comprehend Jennifer's words, her eyes wide and speechless. We knew this before we got married, but my husband can't have children because of an illness he had as a child. We discussed it and decided to cherish our time together, just the two of us. This was a fact known only to our parents. Our parents respected our decision.
But that's...
If you still insist that it's Michael's child, then once the child is born, please provide a DNA test.
He has already passed away. How can we possibly get the DNA test done?
It seems a bit complicated, but I heard it's possible to do it with hair, so it should be fine. Is that acceptable? Besides, it's medically proven that my husband was infertile. Two women, who were colleagues of her husband, firmly grabbed Catherine's arms on both sides.
Ma'am, we are deeply sorry for causing a scene at such a solemn funeral. We will come back to apologize properly on another day. For now, we will escort this woman out immediately.
Wait a minute. We're not finished talking.
You have nothing more to say. Just go back home. Where is your family's house? I'm going with you right now.
My family's house? Please, anything but that.
You have no right to refuse.
No, please.
The woman was dragged outside. The funeral proceeded without further incident. Back at home, I was finally able to take a deep breath of relief. I drank tea in front of my husband's portrait. The husband in the picture was smiling gently at me, just as he had in life. I'm home. I've returned, dear. A few days later, my husband's boss and colleagues came to our house to apologize in large numbers. They were so apologetic that I felt embarrassed. Later, I heard that the story took another shocking turn. It seems the woman named Catherine had been having an affair with another supervisor. By chance, my husband had witnessed them and came to know of it. My husband, who despised infidelity, must have been deeply troubled. He always said he hated to burden me with such distasteful matters. That's why he kept it to himself, becoming more and more disheartened. Catherine, worried about her affair being discovered by her own husband, had planned to claim her child was my husband's. But she was anxious about raising the child alone, and opportunistically used my husband's death, who despised adultery and often nagged about it. Confronted by her company and parents, she couldn't keep up her lies and confessed to everything. It was a thoroughly unpleasant story. As for Catherine, what she did was akin to fraud, tarnishing my husband's honor. Therefore, through a lawyer, I negotiated with her parents for compensation. But the unborn child was innocent. It seems the child will be raised by her parents instead. She herself is working hard under her parents' strict watch to repay the compensation they fronted. As for the company's response, they dismissed the supervisor involved in the affair for compliance violations. As for me, I keep myself busy, cherishing the memories of my husband. Tears come unexpectedly when I'm alone, but when I talk to his photo, I strangely feel lighter and calmed. I believe he's watching over me from heaven. I can't join him yet, but when I do, I'll bring many memories with me. So please, wait for me until that day, my love.